Welcome back once again. Thank you for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummons. I'm glad you joined us. I hope everybody's well and doing fine and nobody's really down in the dumps. But if you are listening to this podcast, this section of the book will make you feel 100% better. Let's go with that. So if everybody hasn't listened to any of the other podcasts, or this is the first one you're tuning into, this is a chapter out of the book Songs of the Buddhas. Chapter 2 is John Lennon's song Imagine, and I go into depth about how the song made me feel and the things that it brought out in me with more of a Zen approach, more of an Eastern thought into the song. So anyway, we pick up where we left off. We were talking about the river that you face when you pass in this life, and it's often said in many mystical books that when we die, we face a river. And anyway, we pick up where we left off on page 44, and I say, anyone who has kept his or her childhood innocence is still a child. They could be 35 years old and have never entered the river of the mind. There are people who are heart-centered. Heart-centered people are closer to God than those who are mind-centered. These people are bound to be more spiritual. Even though they are more spiritual or spiritually connected, they have not completed the journey. They do not yet know God. They feel God's presence within them, but they have not completed the journey yet. Something is incomplete. Most heart-centered people have entered the river, but only up to their waist. The connection they have with God is stronger because they are not fully in the river. They can turn back and walk to the first shore. And remember, you must come to God like small children. So heart-centered people are more like small children. I say that because they can shift in and out of the mind center when needed. And this can leave the heart-centered person confused when they try to think about spiritual matters. Just one more step is needed, and then they become truly centered. Small children are naturally centered, so just watch how a small child breathes in his sleep. He breathes from his stomach, from his hara. The true center is located 2 inches below the navel. The Japanese know this and have called it the hara. The hara is the source of life and wisdom, and this is why the umbilical cord is connected to our hara. This is why we feel closer to our mothers. Mothers also know and have a connection to their children that most fathers don't normally have. A child might be 1,000 miles away, and in the middle of the night, a mother can sense that there is something wrong. Don't get me wrong, some fathers also have this intuitive connection with their children, but usually it's stronger with women. For example, my father has this connection with me. When I was young, he drove over 300 miles across Texas because he felt something was wrong, and he was right. I got in trouble and I had to pay for an outstanding ticket, or a warrant was going to be issued for me. So he showed up and said that he just felt something was wrong. Some fathers who have learned to trust their guts and use intuition have a closer connection with their children than some mothers. It can vary from parent to parent, depending on how much or how far each parent has developed spiritually. And John Lennon sings, "And no religion too." I used to have a big problem with Christian theologies, and I've heard that on numerous occasions how a small child who did not believe in Jesus was their savior would be cast down into limbo or cast into hell. And I say, what nonsense. Even devout Christians who have lost a small child would likely have a problem with such a belief. What kind of God would have the lack of compassion? I wonder if anyone has ever considered for a child to even understand this concept, they would have to be centered in the mind. A mind-centered person has left the innocence of the first shore, and now they are trying to make a deal with God. And it is not a deal with God or Jesus to enter the kingdom of heaven. No transformation of the soul comes from simply believing. From trust, yes, but not from belief alone. You can trust in Jesus, but trust is different from belief. Do you understand that trust comes from your heart and your soul, and beliefs come from the mind? Trust involves the whole being, heart and soul. Belief requires no commitment. One can simply say, I believe or I don't believe, and nothing has changed. It is different with trust. You cannot trust someone halfway. Trust is total. It takes a true commitment of the heart and soul. And you can simply say, I trust you, and be done with it. You have to feel it deep down inside your bones before you can fully trust. One cannot say, I think I can trust you. It is not complete. One can say, I feel I can trust you, and this seems more real, but still it's not complete. When one says, I know I can trust you, it is coming from your gut or from your intuition, then it is total. There exists no doubt in the trust when it comes from your real center. Belief can be the first step in the journey towards finding yourself, but the journey does not end there. The journey ends and begins with trust. You trust your mother in the womb. You have to. There's no other alternative. But it ends in trust because when you find yourself, a part of you dies, and then a new part is born. So it is both. John said, and no religion too. Is religion just a set of beliefs and rules to follow? One group of followers follows ABC rules and another follows XYZ rules, blindly believing that each other's group has it wrong. Then mistrust is born instead of trust. And this is the age of enlightenment. And I think it's time for people to really finally grasp the truth. The child is with God because they never left. They are also with God in the river, except now things become complicated because the light is distorted. The messages coming from God become distorted because they are interpreted through the mind. So now we have to go into the inner world. The following is for those who have entered the river. First, we must wake up and realize that we are in the river, and this is the first step. The next step is to realize how to get out. Getting out means we must realize that we are not in the mind, or we are not the mind, and we are not the body. We are more than the mind or the body. To feel this separation from the mind and body, it is necessary to practice meditation. And this is where Zen comes in. Zen instructs you to find your true face, and it is not the mind. The true face is realized when you become centered. When I say true face, it is a metaphor for consciousness. Now we have to find ways to pull you out of the mind centering. And meditation creates a gap between your consciousness and your mind. This must be this must be experienced to be known. And once you know, a realization will dawn upon you. You'll realize that you are more than the mind. You are your consciousness, and that consciousness is bigger than you and bigger than the mind, bigger than existence itself. When you close your eyes and still your mind, silence transcends your being. This silence connects you with all of existence. A oneness is felt when the mind stills, and this oneness is the fine silver cord that connects us all. Just as a thread connects all beads in a necklace, silence connects us with the divine. And when you become able to still the mind, something miraculous happens. A bridge inside of you that was broken for a long time starts to mend, and it mends itself. This bridge I'm referring to reconnects the 7 energy centers of your body. And we are born with the energy centers called chakras. Upon birth, the first chakra, the root chakra, becomes active. The other 6 remain dormant until they are activated. Normally, they are activated as we go through each 7-year stage of life, but you must fully develop in each stage in order for the next chakra to open up. Light enters a prism as white and comes out as separated into 7 visible colors. Some might argue 6, but for argument's sake, we'll say there are 7 visible colors that you can see. It enters as white and comes out as 7 visible colors, and God's light, God's consciousness and energy enters you the same way light enters a prism. Once his energy enters you, it is divided into 7 centers, and meditation unites and activates these centers as energy is raised. And Zen instructs us not to worry about the centers, just remain centered within yourself and practice awareness in everyday life. Then the chakras will activate in their own due time as the body passes through the 7 stages of life. The first stage of life encompasses the first 7 years of life. And within these 7 years, we learn how our body functions. We learn how to speak and relate with other human beings. Even though we learn so much in the first 7 years, we are limited. There is no intellect unless it is forced upon. There is no desire unless it is forced. When parents force these things upon children, the physical body and the development of the first chakra can cause delays in the child's further growth. Some human beings never develop past the physical body. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Or the first chakra. They never feel the need or knew of any need to further develop spiritually, intellectually, or emotionally. Bringing meditation into practice within these years, it can be done, but to a child playing in the waves is meditation. We do not have to force or persuade a child of this age to understand something he cannot comprehend. The second stage of life, from the age of 7 to 14, the child develops emotionally and a sense of I begins. The child starts to form an ego. Now they are entering into the river a little deeper. And as the ego develops, so does the child's sexuality. By the time the child reaches 14 years old, he has been taught how to compete with other children. He has been taught that life is a competition, and further developing the ego and going deeper into the river. Within these years, if a child is introduced to centering of their consciousness, growing and understanding of the next stage, it will come much easier. I used to teach a children's Aikido class for over 9 years, and I was reluctant at first because the joint locks could be damaging to a child. The age range was from 8 years old to 16 years old, and I felt this was the perfect opportunity to instill a sense of centering in my young students. The results were amazing. The children learned how to function from their centers. I instructed my children to use their minds while learning the movements. And once the movements were learned, they moved without the use of their minds. Consciousness is faster than the mind. If one of the students tried to move off the line of attack using their mind, they would find that they could not move fast enough. And when they moved using their consciousness, they had no problem avoiding the attacks. Aikido is a beautiful martial art, and there are no competitions within the art form. Students soon caught on very fast that the only person he or she has to be better than is themselves. My sensei used to joke and say, "It is not your Kido, it's Aikido." In Aikido, we all help each other because to be the best Aikidoist possible. Sitting meditation in the second phase of life might be helpful for some children. Maybe 5% would be able to sit and meditate. Meditation for children of this age would have to be an active meditation, moving meditations, like in martial art classes. Instilling a sense of centering in the second stage of life could help change the future of our children, of our nation, and for our children's nation. For the first 7 years, give or take a year, there is no feeling of separation between God and the child. The child does not know anything about this. It does not exist. It is just that the child cannot comprehend what we mean by the word God. Just look at it into a baby's face and you will see God's love radiating. There is no evil in a baby's face, just pure innocence, which is another form of God. So trying to instill meditation in the first 7 years should not be done to some children. In the second stage, while the child is developing emotionally, then things are a little different. It would be beneficial if he or she could keep the contact he had with God in the previous stage. For the next 7 years, the child could keep some of the innocence from the first stage, but expressed through emotions. For a child in the second stage, finding love for the first time is meditation. The next stage, from 15 to 21 years old, or years of age, is the child develops intellectually. He learns how to think and reason with others. Now he starts understanding the meaning of a creator who is all loving. And these are the years the ego starts to crystallize, and further he goes into the river. If children were introduced to centering at a younger age, at the age of 15, we would see less mental illnesses. So many mental illnesses are caused because children are taught to be mind-centered, and they lack love. The mind is always in a constant tension between past and the future. Some may not ever feel this tension, and yet others, it is too much. Just look at the amount of suicides of children and young adults going through the second stage is rough enough. Being flooded with emotions and hormones, going crazy. And this is why God gave us 7 years of each section to develop emotionally, and another 7 to develop intellectually. Most children's minds are like sponges in this stage. It is still very stressful, and the child is pulled away from his center and into the mind. Deep inside, this scares so many children. The world would be way different if a child was raised to use the mind when needed, and then be able to shift back to the real center at will. The mind should be used as a tool. Remember, consciousness should be the master, and the mind should be the slave, not the other way around. To me, this is the perfect time to introduce intuition. If we can instill intuition into these years, young people would know what direction they should take as far as their careers are concerned, or who to choose as a mate. If children started meditating at 15, then by the age of 21, they would become proficient at moving from their minds inward towards their center at will to gather and use intuition. In the 4th stage of life, from 22 to 28 years old, we can no longer call the child a child. Unless they stagnated at one of the other first stages, they are now young adults. These young adults are on their way towards establishing careers and starting families of their own. If the child developed fully in the previous stages, emotionally and intellectually, then this is the stage and time to start understanding spirituality. I keep mentioning the child going deeper into the river with each stage as if it were a bad thing, and it is not. Life is like a river, as I said. Some people stay on the first shore, but they never develop the intelligence or have the richness of reaching the other shore. Jesus was quoted as saying in John 3-5, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God." How can a man be born of water? Some took it to mean baptism, but millions have been baptized, and still they do not know the kingdom of God. What Jesus meant to me was the realization that life is a river. Life's meaning has to be transformed. So that means going into the river and then realizing that you are in the river. And this is being born of water. Discovering the far shore and making it to the far shore is being born of the Spirit. I call it the kingdom of God, or you can call it enlightenment. The second shore, I call it coming home. Once the journey is realized, it has to be done in this lifetime, not after you die. If you die while still in the river, then off to the ocean you go. But do not fear, the ocean is God, and God is the ocean as well. The goal has not been reached. The purpose for which you were given life was not fulfilled. It is just awareness of what the river is and what transforms each individual. The river seems to have 2 shores. It does not. It's really only one shore with water covering the middle to give the appearance of 2 shores. And this is why I say with all certainty that the child is with God on the first shore. The shores are the kingdom of God. It does not matter which shore they are on, but they're on both. The water gives the deception of 2 shores. The first innocence is given to us. It is God's gift. The second innocence is we must earn. Maybe earn is not the best word. It would probably be right to say when the seed is ripe and ready, the gift is given. And this is why I choose to write about the river of deceit as the first chapter of this book. I say, yes, you are in the river, and just a little awareness will make you realize it. Once the first shore is abandoned and you have immersed yourself in the mind, then returning to the first shore is not possible for some. Just like in the movie The Matrix, once you are freed from the Matrix, you cannot be reinserted into it permanently. You cannot move in and out of it, but your awareness of the fact that at one time you were used as a battery would prohibit your reinsertion. The same holds true for us. We can temporarily move or regress back to our first childhood, but we cannot stay there. That's why Jesus says, like small children, not be small children, but like small children. Jesus also said in Luke 9:58 that foxes have holes and birds of the air have their nest, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head. And what Jesus meant was that you cannot go back and stay on the first shore. You can stay in the river for a while, maybe several lifetimes, but the river will run into the ocean. And once you return to the ocean, then you are reincarnated. You can fight the currents of the river and try swimming upstream. And this is one of the reasons why ghosts exist. I'm just guessing at this, folks. They are holding on to a life gone by, and the ocean scares them. Letting go of the past is hard to do in this life, and even harder to do in the afterlife. So for some reason, they fight the currents and they stay upstream. You cannot stay in the river forever. The other shore is your destination. And when Jesus said the Son of Man, he meant those born of the flesh. Once you have completed the journey to the other shore, you are no longer the Son of Man. Now you are a son or daughter of God. Now you have been twice born, or as Jesus called it, being born again. Now you can rest your head. Now you are home. Like in the Matrix, you can now move in and out of the Matrix at will. Except instead of a computer-generated world, it is a river, and the river is your mind. The thoughts and the amount of thoughts passing through your mind determine how strong the currents of the river are. So John Lennon's frustration with religion is based on the fact that it is dividing us instead of reuniting us. It's so evident in this song. Jesus also told his disciples in Matthew 12-25 that every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. The east said God is inside. The west said God is outside. The truth is he is both inside and outside. We have to go inside to connect with him, though, and we have to look inside to connect with him. We can look outside and gather all the clues that existence gives us to realize that God's kingdom was divided, and each side believing that they have the whole truth when they only have half of it. It is hard to disprove something that is half true. It has the ring of truth, but we are left wondering if our spiritual leaders told us what they told us, if it was correct or not. There is no real division in God's kingdom. Man has made the only division. In the East, there has been Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and many offshoots. And in the West, there has been Judaism, Christianity, Muslim, and many offshoots of those divisions. And divisions grow every day. And I prefer to stick to the major two people who were not responsible for the division, but have been held responsible by their followers. And I am writing in this book in the beginning of the year 2013. America is in a terrible turmoil. The country has been divided into a two-party system. The Democrats and the Republicans have divided our kingdom. Our Constitution is being destroyed by the left and the right. I hope that our leaders one day realize a bird cannot fly with only one wing. The left and the right wing have to work together so that we can fly. We have come together. All eyes are on America. We are the greatest experiment. We are the melting pot. And if we cannot make it happen, then what hope is there for other nations? If we can see the division of our nation happening, then seeing God's kingdom being divided will have the same effect. Wars are the result. Greed and fear is the result. I say no wonder why John felt compelled to write the song Imagine. True religion unites all people. And if it is creating more and more divisions, then it is not a true religion. On the West Side, Christianity believes that Jesus is the only Son of God. Therefore, at the most, you can be like Christ. Divinity is finished for the West. On the East Side, Hinduism says you are born into your caste and there's nothing you can do about it. So divinity is finished before you are even born from your mother's womb. Buddha left his religion behind and went in search for something he did not know. When he became enlightened, he became the first revolutionary the East has known. He proclaimed anyone could become enlightened, no matter what caste. Anyone could attain enlightenment. A shoemaker could attain godliness, or a cook, or even a carpenter's son. And speaking of a carpenter's son, Jesus was the greatest Western man to become enlightened. Jesus took the teachings of the East and brought them to the Western mind. Jesus was also a revolutionary of the West. He was the first to bring the law of love and replace it with above all other laws. My whole intent of writing this book is to end this constant division of our Father's kingdom. And I'm not asking anyone to give up his or her religions. I'm not asking anyone to believe all the words that are in this book to be true or not to be true. These are my truths because I dared to blend both sides of God's kingdom. I did not give up in prayer, and what I did was talk to God like he was my best friend. And when someone explained meditation to me, I dared to find out myself if there was any mystery in it. My approach was scientific. Someone proposed a theory of God, and I did not just accept what they said was true. Instead, I became a seeker of truth. And Lao Tzu said it best: the truth cannot be told. Once it is told, it becomes a lie. One must experience truth to know it, so there is no other way to know. The same applies to love. To know love, you have to experience it. You cannot know love without experiencing it. It does not matter how much you know about love. The same holds true for any truth. But put fear and hatred aside and discover the truth for yourself. Religions have great intentions. Those intentions are rooted in words spoken in their time. And this is why Jesus made love the greatest commandment. The only constant in this world is change, and love is constantly changing, always growing. So Jesus made a statement in Matthew 9-17, and no one pours wine into old wineskins, and if he does, the new wine will burst the skins. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No new wine must be poured into new wineskins. And in the days of Jesus, wine represented love. Bread represented his body of work and his teachings. And Jesus is saying, if love is in your heart, forget all the old laws. Jesus was bringing a new law, one that unites. Love cannot be contained in the old wineskin. Love was made fresh and made to stay. No container can hold it except the human heart. And that is only when the heart is continually open. If you try to close it off, then love is cut off. But this is what has happened to religions. They hold books as if they were wine flasks full of love. But when the wine flask is capped off, nothing else can be added to it. So it is finished. No new love can be added because the flask grows old. Remain open to love. You are the flask in which love can grow. Our children will be the flask of the future in their time. Love will change and grow. And we owe our children and our grandchildren a chance to take love to higher states, ones we might not even be able to imagine. Okay, folks, it's getting on. I think it's about time to wrap this one up, and we'll pick up with more of John Lennon's song Imagine and my commentaries. I know I'm getting off, but it's coming back home. It's coming back home, believe me. We still got to talk about the fifth and sixth and seventh levels that you go through in life, and most people, you go through them, but most people are just not aware of them. They don't have the conscious ability to comprehend the highest levels of life. But we can get into that and also check out all my other works. I think we've got about 36, 37 videos on YouTube now. I have my own YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel if you can. That would help support me and get the word out to more people that we're sharing love, and we're sharing meditation and Zen and Tantra and Sufism and all kinds of beautiful things. Anyway, thanks again for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummons. Aloha. Also, folks, I want to remind you that you can reach me at 1-877-399-0272. Again, 1-877-399-0272. Once again, thanks for joining me. I look forward to hearing from you. If you feel like calling me, give me a call. Love to talk to you and learn more about you. Anyway, enjoy your lives. Thank you very much.